All right, just because I want to have enough time for our panel discussion and the awesome information that we're going to be shared, I'm going to get started with some announcements. We're going to do a shorter version of our announcements that we normally do if you've been at a WordPress meetup, only because I want to make sure that we have enough time to answer questions. So just a real quick, if you're not familiar with me, I'm Amber Hines. I'm the CEO of Equalize Digital. We're a certified B Corp. We specialize in WordPress accessibility, and we have a plugin called Accessibility Checker that puts reports in your admin dashboard. And we are the lead organizer for this meetup. We have a sponsor today that I want to thank, WordPress VIP. WordPress VIP has generously covered the cost of both our live captions and our ASL interpretation today, so that we can ensure that this is as accessible as possible for everyone to attend and participate today. If you're not familiar with them, WordPress VIP is an agile content platform leading a powerful enterprise ecosystem. They have fully managed, purpose-built platform that powers content for Facebook, Salesforce, Slack, and others. And they bring teams together within WordPress and do enterprise-grade support and security. You can learn more about them at WPVIP.com. Also, you can find them on Twitter at WordPress VIP. I highly recommend that you go out and tweet at them and say thank you. We always like to encourage people to thank our sponsors for helping us make this more accessible. So please tweet them a thank you and let them know how important it is that they helped to cover this, because it's great. Paula did share a link to their Twitter handle in the chat as well. We have two upcoming events. One, our next official meetup during a normal meetup slot will be on Thursday, June 2nd at 10 a.m. Central Time. And during that meetup, Carl Groves will be talking about if or how you can actually give an accessibility score, you know, like you see in Lighthouse or Wave or something like that, where it says it's 100% or 50% accessible to a website. So it'll be very interesting if you're interested in trying to figure out how you can measure the accessibility of a website and report on that. I'm going to add a spotlight to Joe Dolson, which I think worked. There we go. He should have popped up for everyone. If you're not familiar with Joe, Joe is big in the WordPress accessibility space, and he is the lead organizer of WordPress Accessibility Day along with me, and he's going to talk a little bit about that.
Well, thank you very much for coming here today. Amber and I are super excited. We just launched the new website for the 2022 WordPress Accessibility Day. You can find that and follow it at wpaccessibility.day. And I realized, just as I was planning my comments here for this today, that I was going to have to spell that out so that you wouldn't think it was a German website. But we're really setting our goals high this year. You know, everybody had a very difficult 2021, and we did not manage to put together a WP Accessibility Day that year. But now we're getting our stuff going. We're really going to rock this. We've set some high goals. We're going to plan on having live captioning for everything, just like we did in 2020. And we're planning on adding ASL interpretation as well. And if we can meet our stretch goals for budgeting, we're going to try and have live translation. We want to make this as globally an accessible event as we possibly can. So look at our website. If you want to support us financially, make a donation or become a sponsor. If you want to get involved, we'll have forms for getting interested in being a volunteer or submitting speaker talks down the road. I think those are supposed to We're just going to start asking for those in July. Amber nodded, so I'm going to say that I was right.
I think
but
it's July. Yeah, I think it's the beginning of July. We're going to put out a call
We've
for
had a
speakers.
lot of dates floating around, so it's around then. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow us at twitter.com/WP Accessibility, where we'll share all sorts of information about the events coming up, as well as all of the usual WordPress accessibility goodness that we share through that email, through that Twitter account. I hope you look forward to it. I hope to see you all there on November 2nd. We're going to start at 10 o'clock a.m. Central. That's 1300 UTC. And it's going to be loads of fun. Nope, that's 1500 UTC. I lied. That is 1500. I need to get my offsets right. All right.
Great. Well, thank you, Joe. Let's see, I'm going to add spotlights for our panelists now and just make sure that I have everyone up, which it kind of buries people alphabetically. So give me 1 second while I find you in the list. I have had moments where I definitely think we need to switch to Zoom webinars. Here we go. Okay. All right, so I'm excited to introduce, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, Mark McGuire and Alicia Jarvis. Devin will hopefully be joining us. He is also a student, and so he had something come up sort of last minute, but he is hoping to call in from his phone and join us. But I am very excited with the two panelists we have, and I know we'll have a great event even if he is unable to join in. So starting with Mark, do you want to introduce yourself to the group and tell us about your background?
Yes, and I'm going to have the interpreter voice for me. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. This is wonderful. Before I go ahead and introduce myself, just want to share some wonderful news about WordPress and in relationship to accessibility platforms. The caption and the ASL interpreters, hearing that you guys are going to provide those is wonderful, because I know for myself as a deaf individual, I prefer to communicate through sign instead of spoken English. And I prefer an ASL interpreter instead of captions, but I do use captions as an assistant so that I can fully understand and fill in any gaps that might be there in the communication. But I just think that's wonderful information to hear and that you've shared with us today. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Mark McGuire. I identify as, or my pronouns are he, him, his. I identify as culturally deaf, or a culturally deaf person. I prefer sign language to communicate. I can speak for myself. Let me think. And I can't remember at this moment, but I am a certified professional web accessibility individual. I'm certified from the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, IAAP. And because of that, I do a lot of work with varying industries, different clients who are in need of assistance in terms of accessibility. And so I work with many different individuals and groups. I do a lot of design, development, and I also am planning on doing some trainings that would tie all of those things together, because I really love WordPress and I really feel fortunate to have that platform. And I'd like to be instrumental in moving that needle to more accessibility, because often there are avenues for improvement. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We're glad to have you here as well, Mark. Alicia, would you like to introduce yourself and your background?
Sure. Hi, my name is Alicia Jarvis. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I'm a senior product manager working on the accessibility portfolio at Bell Canada. My pronouns are she and her. I have dark brown hair and brown eyes. And today I'm wearing my dark blue Nothing About Us Without Us t-shirt. And right now I'm sitting in my home office. I do have over 12 years of experience in accessibility. Actually, my accessibility journey started at Bell in 2009. I was an intern working on the accessibility portfolio then. And then my contract ended in 2011 and I moved on to work in a couple of banks. So the Royal Bank of Canada and Scotia Bank, working on various accessibility initiatives and inclusive design initiatives. And I'm also certified with the IAAP. I'm a certified professional, accessibility professional.
Great, thank you. Would either of you, and maybe you can start, Alicia, since you're unmuted right now, would you like to talk about your experience with disabilities and how it impacts your experience on the web?
Sure. So I do have short arms and I identify as an amputee or limb different. My experience with the web as an adult, I really don't have like any really big accommodations or anything like that. I use an external keyboard and mouse. So working on a laptop without the external keyboard or mouse is a little bit challenging and difficult for me. So I do prefer having that external stuff. But when I was a kid, the dexterity in my hands and fingers were not as it is today. And so I tried out different assistive technologies and also myoelectric arms, where with an artificial arm, typing on a keyboard is actually very difficult because the fingers, at least back then, didn't move independently. So you had to hold like something like a stylus or pencil. At the time I held a upside down pencil to actually press keys on the keyboard with my myoelectric arms.
And Mark, do you want to tell us a little bit about how your deafness might impact your experience on the web?
The word taught myself because it kind of helped tell the story. So if the interpreter can find for me, that would be awesome. Okay. I was born deaf with bilateral hearing loss in both ears. Because I was fortunate to have parents who were motivated to give me the best educational opportunity growing up. I learned how to talk and sign language and sign at the same time. It did present a little bit of a challenge in terms of learning because of the different ways information was presented to me in the form of text from book reading, in the form of lip reading, watching my teacher teach me how to talk, my speech therapist, and then learning from my teacher for the job who taught me sign language so I could, basically reinforce the information I learned. We slowly found out that sign language was the best form of perceiving information for me, which kind of tied into the web content accessibility guideline principles, perceivable, being the base of the 4 principles of accessibility. I kind of lost my train of thought, but so that's my disability. However, to be clear, I am a member of the job community that identify themselves in terms of a cultural identity with sign language, with IP language, over everything else. And I basically come into the competition from the different intersections. We're all coming into the competition from, coming to the competition from the intersection of someone who's deaf. And rely on assistive technology such as closed captioning and accommodation such as an ASI interpreter to facilitate communication between people. And as far as everything I go good more or less be me as someone who is privileged to use as many tools as possible, but I ask you to limit myself to using the keyboard because I know that's the base rule of accessibility, making sure we can use the keyboard to access the internet. And by working with diverse group of people with disability, I've learned a lot about different creative solutions that work for the individual compared to designing for one, attending to all. Yeah, I think I don't know if I answered your question, but.
Yeah, I think so. And actually, I just saw we had an iPhone come in and I'm wondering if that's Devin. So Devin, if that is you, feel free to unmute and say hello and I will pull you into the conversation because it's not labeled. So it just says iPhone.
Hello,
In
is it working?
Yes. Hi, Devin. Are you able to do
Hello.
video or no
How
video?
goes this sound? I can do video, however, I'm in the passenger seat of a car, so I'm not sure how good it would look.
So if you do
So-
video, that will allow me to add a spotlight on you. I can't do it if you don't turn your video on.
Okay, I can
There we go. Okay, let me spotlight you real quick for everyone. Devin, so we were just, I think I did it. Try again. There we go. All right. We were just introducing ourselves and talking a little bit about how disabilities or experience with disability has impacted our experience on the web. Would you want to introduce yourself and give a little intro?
Sure. My name is Devin Gutierrez. I'm a totally blind music producer and musician. I have an album out, and I'm also a computer geek. And so while I don't really know how to program a computer, I understand all the lingo, so I can communicate, or at least try to communicate with the people who make websites and programs and things, and give them a pretty good user perspective on how their accessibility is doing and how usable and friendly their website or software is.
Great. Well, so I was going to ask a question of all of you. Was there ever a time that the inaccessibility of content on the web or website itself stopped you from engaging with a business? Because I feel like there are a lot of times businesses think it doesn't matter, or it doesn't impact them, or they don't have people in their audience. And so I'm curious if any of you had personal experiences with that. Would you want to start, Devin, since you were just speaking?
I mean, well, I could talk about how the inaccessibility of certain websites, to include a majority of the social media networks, I could argue impede my access to my own business as a musician, because a lot of the websites for those social media platforms are not necessarily screen reader accessible, which means it's very difficult for me to independently promote my work and the songs that I do and the places I'll be playing, etc. But beyond that, I mean, I've had plenty of websites, that I haven't been able to go to simply because they were inaccessible, that have stopped me from like purchasing products or any other number of things. So,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I've had it happen all the time, basically, what I'm trying to say, I guess.
But it's way more common than it should be.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah. Alicia or Mark, have either of you had experience with that's made you want to stop patronizing a business or not patronize a business?
Yes, I'll name it Domino's. I used to get my pizza from Domino's all the time, and I have, especially more recently, made conscious decisions on where I spend my money and making sure that the organizations that I am supporting coincide with my values. So Domino's was one that I just moved to a different pizza place for those pizzas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so pretty much every day, especially when I someone in terms of the website, but the paging it themselves, especially when they post videos online without caption or have, I'm sorry, we have a dog outside, but video without caption or post a recording on their website without a transcript of what will be inside. Basically, that when there's the experience, I don't want to say worthless, but when the experience worthless for me, so I simply close the tab and move on to the next website. It happens every day, especially on social media where we're uploading content almost every second. all over the world without making it accessible.
Mhm. What do you think if people are struggling with where to start, whether they're a designer, a developer, or a business owner, what do you think are the most important things that could be done? Or are there maybe a top 3 or 5 things that you think people could start with that would make a big difference for people? And do you want to start with that, Mark, in your opinion? Or I know you also, we have some accessibility expertise here too, beyond just personal experience. So.
The first thing I would just say is take a deep breath and relax. Don't this is your product, this is your pride, enjoy whatever it is you are about to share with the world online. So, if anything, it's like how babies grow into adults. They basically, it's one step at a time or something like that, one forward movement at a time into adulthood. So if you can start with more or less the most accessible content, which is tough, it can be, a template for what you want to convey information in different mediums like video or imaging, both of which are also inaccessible. But if you have a touch to work with, whether it's like a Word document or something you write down on paper, it's just something that allows you to work and copy over into other mediums that are not accessible. Yeah, there might be some more work involved, like with the imaging, then like an alternative touch to the image where applicable, an alternative touch. Yes, it can be as descriptive as possible, but I don't know enough about this, but for the most part, screen readers do have, good screen readers do allow people who use them to cut off the alternative text after a certain number of characters. So, for example, with 150 characters, and you write an alternative text for 300 characters, it cannot get cut off. So cannot use that to your advantage to describe the image a little bit more with the way concise, C-O-N-C-I-S-E.
Concisely.
Concise. And then outside of the image, providing image description in detail if you want to go that way. That's the number one thing you can do for images. The number one thing you can do for people who have color contrast issues is to make sure you provide enough contrast on all of the elements on your website. Whether it's a logo, whether it's an icon, whether it's your font, because that's the number one issue online right now, not enough color contrast. So those two things, color contrast, alternative text, I don't know what the third most common issue is, but those two are great starting points.
Yeah. Alicia, do you have thoughts about other top things that people could start with?
Yeah, I would start with putting your mouse in a bucket and just using your keyboard only. for a day or whatever. Test your stuff, test other people's stuff with a keyboard. Also, get out of the building, go and talk to your users, go and talk to people, understand what you're building or what you're designing and who are you designing for. And I think that's a really good question, especially now as we move into more sophisticated technology. We need to really understand as designers what we are designing and question that, and question who are we designing for and why.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Devin? Do you have thoughts on top things people could start with, or anything different you'd add that you think makes a big difference on the web?
Well, if you really want to make things accessible, the easiest thing I would recommend is simplify. No burger menus, no animations, no flashy graphics, no 300,000 megabytes of JavaScript. Just a website that provides the information for your business that you need is, because of its simplicity, already going to be much more easy to make accessible than if you have all kinds of crazy animations and other stuff going on the page. So keep it simple and it'll stay accessible.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, we spend a lot of time trying to encourage our clients that they don't need sliders. Whereas I think, they're starting to realize that, and it's not as bad as it was maybe 5 years ago, where every website had a slider at the very top of it. But I still feel like there's this desire, right, for people to think it needs to have movement and crazy things going on in order to look like a professional design. Maybe isn't the case in reality. On the other hand, are there key examples of things not to do that you see really commonly? I know, Mark, you talked a little bit about alt text being missing or bad color contrast. Are there other things that would be good to highlight? And anyone feel free to jump in.
Carousels. I see that more often than I would like. And really, they're just a bad experience for everybody. Like, you don't even have to think about accessibility. Like, who really clicks on those things? Like, I don't understand. And just, I think sometimes designers want to do something new and unique and creative, but really sticking to the basics of your components and not trying to design something that doesn't really make sense semantically. Like, I've seen buttons that behaved like radio buttons, or some sort of control that I actually didn't even know what it was or what it was supposed to do. So really, like, working with your developers and your team to make sure that whatever you're designing actually makes sense, and not going and doing creative things for the sake of creativity.
I think, let's see, Caroline asked in the chat, do you think carousels are bad in general, or just ones that move automatically?
I think that they're bad in general. If you actually look at the click-through rate on most carousels, most people, they don't get a very good click-through rate. They discourage people from actually engaging with the content, instead of what most people think they do. They think, oh, users are going to actually engage more, but really it's the opposite that happens. So if you are going to use a carousel, yes, please make sure that you can stop and pause it, and it is user controlled. But it's an overall not great experience for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Devin, there was a question following up on your statement about, you called them burger menus, which I think were hamburger menus. And they're wondering what's the alternative to that? And are you more talking about hamburger menus on a desktop website versus a mobile website? Or could you share some extra thoughts about that?
I mean, it's more common. Sorry for the wind. By the way, I'm walking to the building where I have to teach my class in a few minutes. But I've seen them. Of course, it's more common, I think, with desktop versions, but I wouldn't be surprised if mobile websites had that. I haven't actually seen very many of them. I was just citing them as an example.
Mm-hmm.
But
so I think, and maybe
alternatives might include combo boxes, radio buttons. You know, there's other ways to have people choose options or to show people different content that don't involve that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on that, Mark? I know I've seen sometimes where there are hamburger menus or hidden menus on even desktop computers, and it's really challenging with just a keyboard. And I don't know if you have experience with that.
Yeah, basically, it came about as a way to become creative from a touch-based website where everything was more or less a linked touch from one place to another. And we eventually came up with additional web technology, such as the button, which allowed us to perform a function within the web page itself without having to navigate to another web page. That function itself will open a, I don't know if the module is the right way to use, but that module will present you with a list of menu options to take you where you want to go. It was a way to save green space because when the web became more available, for those of you who are familiar with the in the 90s or early 2000s, we had smartphones that was smaller than what we have today, like a little 3-inch by 3-inch screen. And they were trying to maximize the screen real estate at the time. However, they did not realize it was encoded in a way that made buttons inaccessible for people using assistive technology to access what could be accessed on a regular desktop website. We have come a long way, but we still have the code with accessibility in mind, or rather code with accessibility base in mind. There are ways to make hamburger menu accessible, but are they usable? That will definitely encourage you to reach out to people like Devin and other people who will give you their own base hands-on experience. Just like with carousel, what Alicia was saying about carousels, again, I forced myself to throw away the mouse, as Alicia says, and just navigate with the keyboard by using the tab key. And sometimes when you navigate with the tab key, you can't get into the carousel. And that kind of renders the carousel inaccessible. So I just thought if you really need it in the base page, because there are a lot of ways to make a really usable website without the fancy design techniques to keep eyeballs on the web page, for lack of a better word. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I saw some conversations in the chat also about it. Wendy pointed out if you have a user who's really zoomed on the page, it might be hard to find like the small 3-line marks if they don't get bigger, right? I know what I've personally seen with regards to a lot of those elements, particularly if they're created in a page builder in WordPress, is like you mentioned, having the code underlying. Sometimes it's not actually a button, it's just a span and you can't even focus on it with a keyboard and open that menu. So that's a challenge too. Let's see. Are there ways, so if a business has problems on their websites, are there ways that they can make it easier for people to contact them or get help? Do you like seeing accessibility statements? Are there like phone, forms, live chat? Are any of those better than others, or are some really worse than others? Alicia, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I think having a really diverse communication strategy is key. Is that I wouldn't say that like one mode of communication is better or worse than others, although with one caveat, which is an IVR system, which is the traditional telephone system that you press one or a number of options. That seems to be my least favorite way of communicating with any business. I think accessibility statements are really good as that first kind of level of communication out to your customers and users, to give them a baseline of what you're thinking about, how you're approaching accessibility, and what you intend to kind of do. And then from there, integrating feedback or the ability to handle user feedback through your normal kind of communication channels that you would have for anybody else, really, including social media, text messaging, email, whatever your communication strategy is.
Devin, do you have thoughts about ways that you like to communicate with businesses if you find a problem on their website?
Usually I would just email them and see if they're willing to open up a dialogue about, hey, this is broken. However, I haven't necessarily succeeded with that line of contact in a lot of situations. But I am actually succeeding in one scenario. I mean, it wasn't a website, but it was an app that I was using for technical theater productions at the school where I'm helping out. And it was about the accessibility of that program with the screen reader on the Mac. And I actually got a response from the developer, and I'm now helping to test the new version for accessibility features, which is pretty cool.
That is really awesome that they actually are taking initiative.
I mean, yeah, the response is pretty quick, and they're like, yeah, this is something we want to take seriously. Please have our next test build of our software and see if it works for you.
That's great.
So it was one of the first times I ever had a successful reach out to a company and had them bite back.
Honestly, one of the biggest things is people just paying attention to their customer feedback and not setting it aside.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
very important. You want to feel listened to. You want to be able to come to a company and say, hey, love your product, but here's some things you could make better. And you want to be able to then come away with, the things fixed or, on the way.
Mhm.
You don't want to just hear, oh, we'll consider it and then be kind of forgotten. A lot of
I think.
things tend to get lost in the we'll consider it phase.
Mhm. So it's really important for, I think, companies and development shops to have a process in place for what do you do when you receive feedback, how do you log it, and then how do you ensure that it gets followed up on and not lost? So
Yeah.
Mark, do you have thoughts about this, communicating and keeping track of problems that are open issues and need to be resolved?
Yes, I've worked in operation dropshipping event management software company in the past, and I'm currently consulting with a healthcare engagement company that involves communication with over 1 million customers, and but like Alicia said, having an accessibility statement is a great starting point. If you, one beautiful thing about WordPress is that you can create a menu that you can put in the footer of your website, and it will display a link to the accessibility statement page, and keep that everywhere on your website. As far as the communication channel go, what Devin said about like not getting any kind of response or momentum within the company, that's a common problem. And this is where it depends on the size of your website, whether you have the website for your own business or if you are managing the website for another business. To set up a good communication channel from the accessibility statement to the email that someone who is going to take responsibility for or communicating with whoever is reporting the issue. That person will be able to more or less advocate on sometimes having a supervisor help. But that person will basically be responsible for advocating on the website user's behalf to the website designer and developer to what's happening. One of the problems I have, well, not problem, but one of the feedback I have received from designers and developers is that they don't have enough information as to what the problem is. Like Devin mentioned, like hamburger menu. It basically, like as I mentioned before, hamburger menu tend to show up on mobile devices that help narrow things down, and that also help narrow things a little bit more down for the developer to look at the code. And this is where they can identify whether the HTML code involved with the hamburger menu was in some cases JavaScript, but if the code is written correctly to announce the hamburger menu as a menu with the list of pages. Otherwise, if you say, I have a problem with the menu, started in rehab, the development team troubleshoot the problem. Now, if you have like 10 different ways for people to contact you, you know, if you have like Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, a telephone number, an email address, a mailing address, it's gonna be difficult to spend time and resources to ensure everyone is being responded to, which is why I recommend keeping your an open channel for accessibility issue to run with 2, maybe 3 methods of communication. If it's an email, if it's a direct message on social media network, if it's a telephone call, that's fine. Just don't give like 10 different ways for people to try and reach out. And yeah, have someone dedicated to answering them. There are solutions, but it depends on what system you have in place and how you can assign those issues or the ticket to resolve them.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think some of it too is prioritizing. So, you know, flagging for your team that this is a priority and it doesn't just go in our queue. Maybe we put it at the head of other features, and making testing part of your process is really important. I'm
Well-
curious. Oh, go ahead, Devin.
Well, one thing I said, you said I wanted to note down right quick. You said before other features, but what I would point out to the team is that, I mean, accessibility isn't a feature. Accessibility is a design choice, and accessibility is a design choice to be inclusive. If you have to think of it like a feature where you're having to decide whether or not it's critical enough, then you don't, you know, you need to relook at the definition of accessibility and inclusion and see if you're modeling that for, you know, everybody else by what you're doing as a company. I mean,
Yeah,
accessibility shouldn't be optional. It should be a part of your design philosophy if you want to include as many people as possible.
Yeah, and I appreciate you stepping up on me on that, because that was not a good word choice. I think what I meant to say was you should be accessible before you add new features. but yes, you're right. It's accessibility
Yes.
is not a feature. It's not a nice to have, right?
Right. That was just my main point.
Mhm.
I mean, we
So,
definitely need our accessibility.
a question that we get a lot and comes up sometimes at the meetup, and I see online a lot, is, are there any quick fix solutions? Are overlays a good option? Because there are some companies that do that. And maybe Devin, you want to start on that front if you have any thoughts about accessibility overlays?
Well, allow me to choose my words carefully, because the people who maybe manage the organizations that talk about the overlays, they don't really like being talked about in a negative light, and they have been known to be quite litigious about it. So put it this way, I have not personally seen an overlay that has added any accessibility to the site that couldn't have been gotten through functionality otherwise already existing in a screen reader. So do with that what you will. I do not personally see any value in them, but obviously my opinions are my own, et cetera, et cetera.
Alicia, what do you think about quick fixes or overlays?
I think that if you're looking for a quick fix for accessibility, then you really don't understand what you're and who you're designing for. Because I think that any user experience or design, regardless of if we're talking about accessibility or anything, there's a reason why designers exist. There's a reason why it's a profession. And that if you're looking for a quick fix, then I usually get called afterwards and you're spending a lot more money to fix it later. So instead of looking for a quick fix, I would say spend the time and money to really do it right in the first place. I equate it to buying a car, is that when you're looking for a car, you want something that's dependable, you want something that's safe, you want something that meets all of the criteria that you're looking for. You wouldn't just buy a car from a record dealer or a record, like something off the street that is unsafe and whatever, because it's just a car. And I approach the same way with whatever I'm designing or building, is you want to build and design a quality product, and that's the end goal.
I will say, so Catherine asked in the chat, what is an overlay? And Mark shared a link to the overlay fact sheet. So overlayfactsheet.com. And that explains more about it, but just real quickly,
Yes.
for people who are not aware, it is a JavaScript tool that you can, it's like SaaS solutions normally, that you can add to your website. In our last couple of minutes, does anyone have any extra information about website accessibility that they want to leave our audience, our designers or developers with, that they really want them to know? Mark, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think basically say that there is a lot of information out there online about web accessibility. And I know that WordPress has a good citing place for learning what make WordPress accessible with their happy put up the link, but there's if you Google written WordPress, you're seeing accessibility section with a bunch of information in it, with maybe Joe Dawson can provide some information about the class group, but there is a lot of information involved, and don't be overwhelmed. Just take it one step at a time. Just be aware that there are legal ramifications if you don't make your website accessible. And if you're not sure whether something is accessible or not, don't try it until you get some feedback from the disability community. You can often find them on social network using the hashtag A11Y, which is I can't say the word, it's an acronym for accessibility. I think that's a good starting point. Just focus on creating accessible content, then engage with the designers and developers to document everything they are using to create your website. Find out what's accessible and what's not. And that way you have a checklist of what to work on. And yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's one step at a time. Devin, do you have any last thoughts?
The last thing I would say is basically just, accessibility. Everybody needs accessibility eventually. Someone's going to reach for a pair of glasses. Someone's got to have, an app on their phone that helps them hear better. everybody uses accessibility in their own small way. And if you can start thinking about ways that accessibility might help you as a developer or as just a person using your technology, it may help you to understand how accessibility can help others use their equipment and live their life, which can help you understand how to design accessibility into the future.
Yeah, empathy is very important. Alicia, do you have any final thoughts?
Sure. I would say don't necessarily focus on compliance and legal. Realize that that's the floor, not the ceiling, and that this is really a chance for you to be innovative and creative, especially as a designer and a developer. You know, we talked a lot about don't go too crazy, don't use elements that are not standard. But at the same time, I think if you do get out of the building and you start talking to your users, that you will really understand that this is a truly innovative and creative space. And I encourage you to use that to your advantage and not just go by compliance.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think we will have a recording for this available in about a week once we get corrected captions available for it. I'm going to have Mark, Alicia, and Devin let me know the best way if they want to share their social media, or if there's another way for you to get in touch with them if you have follow-up questions, and we'll make sure that that's posted with the video. I think they're all on LinkedIn and Twitter. Is that right? Everyone's on LinkedIn and Twitter? Yes.
I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. Yeah.
Great. So thank you everyone for attending. And again, a huge shout out to WordPress VIP for sponsoring our captions and our ASL interpretation today. Please don't forget to go give them a thank you on Twitter to encourage them to want to sponsor again, and check them out on their website, wordpressvip.com. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of me between now and our next meetup in our WordPress Accessibility Facebook group. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.